all analysts are the same. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and a couple of years ago I had the opportunity to be on the board of directors for the Military Operations Research Society. It's this really unique organization that gets analysts together from all over the Department of Defense to share their research in an environment that goes up to the classified level. I learned a ton through that experience, and one of the most interesting was the different types of analysts. Not the difference between what they study, but the differences in their location within the organization. An understanding of these differences and the type of work that they do, well, that can help you find the optimal place for yourself within this massive bureaucracy. Plus, even if you aren't an analyst, understanding these differences helps you see and understand the friction that goes on between analysts. Okay, the way I think about this is kind of like a celestial model. You've got a large object that the analysts orbit at different distances. That large object is some senior leader, often a general officer, so like you see it's kind of like a star. But more importantly, that general, that leader, well, they have questions that drive this model. Orbiting the GO, you've got three rings. You've got your staff analysts, and then you've got your inter-organization analysts, and further out you've got your external analysts. Staff analysts work on the staff of the general officer. They're the closest to him, and they provide answers to the most immediate questions. They usually don't have much time to conduct or prepare analysis, sometimes as little as an hour, and to them, a month or a too long month project is really unusual. They frequently use canned reports, and the data that they're working on is often raw or live. The analytical techniques they use tend to be unsophisticated and rely heavily on data visualization. The second ring of analysts are the inter-organizational analysts. These analysts work on persistent issues that are perennial problems to the general officer. For example, force structure modeling or combat simulation. Projects at this level may last 3 to 18 months, and there's a higher priority put on data cleansing and model validation. Accordingly, the methods they use are more sophisticated, but they do not attempt to create new methodologies. Instead, what they're doing is they're taking proven methods and applying them to unique organizational data. The third and most distant ring are the external analysts. These include universities, FFRDCs, and some contractors. These analysts are more focused on generic methods than on the specific questions of one organization. The work that these analysts do can span years, and it's subject to intense peer review. At the same time, this category of analysts usually performs some educational function, generating the future analysts for the other rings. They draw some of their membership from those inner rings. And additionally, when they interact with an organization, they typically use one of those inner rings as an interface with the leader. It's really uncommon for a general officer to be working directly on a problem with one of those external analysts. Now, the first thing to understand is that the analysts in each of these rings, they feel that they're the ones who are doing the real analysis, and that the other two rings are superfluous. Analysts usually try to get assigned to their preferred ring so that they can do real analysis. In and of itself, that preference is okay, so long as you don't forget that we're all working together to try to support the decision makers. Personally, I like being a staff analyst. I like the challenge of anticipating what the questions are going to be and then rapidly framing answers that are consistent without being too wishy-washy. But not everybody gets to work in their preferred ring of analysis. And this is especially true of military analysts who aspire to work in academia. You may have to do a payback tour that's kind of not your thing, but make the best of it. figure out how the organization works and the types of work that other analysts are doing and what they need. The other thing an analyst may run into is sort of unpleasantly discovering that they were wrong about their preferred ring of analysis. I thought that I would love working in a think tank, and people often said to me, Chuck, you would really be good in a think tank. And while I was in grad school, I got the opportunity to spend almost a year with the Navy's Strategic Studies group, and I gotta be honest, I didn't love it. I mean, it was cool, but by the time it was over, I was ready to get back in the trenches. Same thing happened to me when I did my War College fellowship up at MIT. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't something I wanted to do forever. So if you don't get assigned where you want to be, don't despair. You might learn something about yourself that you didn't expect. Before I wrap this up, I want to show you one more analytical organization that fits into this celestial model. I call this the comet because it comes from outside the orbital system. It approaches very close to that central decision maker, often closer than the inner ring, and then in most cases flies away. The reason that the comet exists and behaves the way it does has to do with the relationship that central decision maker, whether it's a political appointee or a senior general officer, the relationship that they have with the existing rings. Remember, from the perspective of a new senior leader, all this organizational support, it predates him. And therefore, if he doesn't like how the organization has been working, he tends to distrust the existing parts of the organization. Since the big boss doesn't trust the existing analytical support, what he may do is try to create a new analytical organization by drawing from analysts way outside the organization. And then what he does is he brings this new analytical group close to him, kind of like that comet. But in many, many cases, when the big boss moves on to his next job, that analytical organization, it kind of wobbles and either disintegrates or disappears. They almost never continue to exist on their own without that leader, especially if what they've been doing is duplicating the work of an existing organization all along. The big question for individual analysts is, do you jump on the comet or not? And personally, I tend to view these types of analytical organizations with a degree of suspicion. If the underlying reason for the existence of the comet is distrust that the senior leader has for his own team, I really don't want any part of that. I mean, I don't want to be picking sides within the family. Additionally, these organizations seem to very often set naive and unrealistic goals. The big boss doesn't like the forecast he's getting, so these folks are going to fix it. And while there's tons of face time that you can get from this experience, there's not a lot of time to actually make a difference. So to me, the real reason that you want to jump on a comet is because you want to make a career change in about 18 to 36 months. You boost your resume, you pick up some additional skills, and when things inevitably start to unravel, then you make your move. Now, if you're interested in a better understanding of analysts and how the whole grad school experience kind of messes them up, watch this video.